It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thanks for tuning in once again. This edition, a special edition, is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. Technical support is provided by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety, a 501c3 corporation. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hey, good afternoon, Fred.
Good afternoon. There are only a handful of companies, really, that have been taking all of the investment dollars, the technology, demonstrations, and trials, and turning dreams into reality. Cruise is one of those, with GM and Honda as operating partners and Microsoft as their strategic partner. There's also backing from Walmart, SoftBank, and T. Rowe Price. And with us from Cruise, we're very happy to welcome Mo ElShenawy, Executive Vice President of Engineering. Glad to see you, Mo.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, welcome. So nice to have you.
Thanks, Alain.
Mo, you've been with the company for 4 years, but what an eventful last few months. You've received a DMV permit in California, allowing your driverless vehicles to carry members of the public, and have applied for a permit to begin charging for those rides. Give us the overview of what's taking place right now, first off in San Francisco.
Yeah, indeed. I'll start with the moment I'll never forget, and I know that for sure. I know I'll never forget that first ride I had in a fully driverless AV here in San Francisco. And we've done this, as you've mentioned, back in late 2021 after receiving the right permits for it. So working backwards from where we're at today, we do have public driverless AVs in the streets of San Francisco. We are taking a very deliberate approach into how are we expanding our service. So today we're operating the driverless fleet only at night between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. in the northwest section of the city. And we are taking a small incremental steps to ensure operational readiness and product market fit as we expand our fleet. But that amazing moment has been years in the making. And frankly, it's been years in the making before I even joined the company. I've been here for 4 years and some change. And we're all rowing in that one direction to safely put AVs down on the road. We started driverless testing in 2020, actually, towards the end of 2020. So almost 1 year before that moment. And we've been progressing steadily to get to this amazing milestone that we had, where we truly have driverless, no gimmicks, no strings attached, true driverless AVs in the streets of San Francisco.
No safety drivers involved.
No safety drivers involved.
So Mo, if I can, throw in a comment. I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing in San Francisco, and the way you're doing it. I mean, if some people sort of roll their eyes and they say, "Oh, midnight to 5 a.m. So what?" If you are poor in San Francisco, and the only job you have is a third shift job, there is no mobility provided except for what you can provide at that time. So in fact, your customer at that time is actually the person that you have the opportunity to just, improve their lives, because you provide mobility at a time where, otherwise you really have to reach in your pocket, and it's non-cheap. And I don't think many people point that out, and I just want to point it out. Look, we got to get this started at times when it may be easy, but in fact, that is an enormous value proposition that you deliver to at least some folks that live there in San Francisco that don't have access to a car. Certainly the buses aren't running. I mean, even the metro whatever doesn't run 24/7. So, comment or my comment or whatever. I just wanted to throw that out there.
So you're spot on, Alain. This is a great comment. You're spot on the product market fit angle. And that's why we're really starting here. We do see a true case where safety and reliability of the current alternatives is just not there.
Yeah.
So to provide a reliable, always there option for you that's never going to get tired or distracted or or drowsy at that late at night, is a great place to start. But as I said,
Absolutely.
it's not only optimizing for easy. It's not that at all. Actually, we've seen some very challenging night driving situations. As you know, most of the other drivers on the road at this time are not at their absolute best. So more traffic violations we actually track there, people blowing through red traffic lights, very hard to see occluded pedestrians, weather conditions, you name it. So it's a truly, it meets the intersection between our safety mission in one hand, at the same time providing a true value for customers in need, to your points. And more importantly, as I've mentioned, we are taking a very deliberate approach to win the trust of the city that we've been operating in for so long, right? We don't want to launch this at the city. We're launching it with the city. We're taking very deliberate incremental approach so that people can see our progress, steady and slow progress, and we learn from it and go from there.
You know, we've talked for some time about driverless with a mobility service like this, and how there really isn't a business model that makes sense unless it is driverless. Do you go along with that? Is that a correct assumption?
100%. That the key point here is to remove the most expensive factor in transportation, which is hiring your private driver to go from point A to point B, even if that's yourself in some cases. I mean, we've seen, we have, to your point, the current system is just fundamentally flawed. It's not sustainably or it doesn't have the equity we want. We've seen transportation deserts in city. And we've seen families spend up to 30%, poor families especially, spend up to 30% of their disposable income on transportation. So
in Jersey, it's higher. It's higher than 30%. It's almost 80% because some people that live like near the Pine Barrens and so on,
right.
You don't have a car, you can't, and therefore you're stuck. And if Uber and Lyft drivers get a living wage, it's not cheap. Not,
exactly right.
If we get somebody to drive for free, yeah, okay. How long does that last?
Right,
2 seconds.
Right. And that's exactly the point, like removing the most expensive factor in the driving equation in this case, and replacing it with a driving system that is safe and reliable, takes this to a very different level. And it truly changes the face of transportation, where it's like the single occupant, gasoline driven personal cars becomes, it doesn't make much sense, even from an economic perspective, once we succeed in our mission.
Well,
that's certainly our view over here from where we're in the East Coast. You guys are on the West Coast, but we see it the same. I mean, seriously, yes. In the discussions we've had here to try to invite you to come to Trenton, to do it in Trenton, where 70% of the households have access to one or fewer cars. I mean, you go talk to people and it makes you cry how they're, they can't get where they can't walk to. If they can't walk to it, they can't really get there. And it's just a shame. It's a darn shame. And my goodness, to be able to provide this kind of mobility to them, I mean, it's life-changing, we think. And I think we have everybody lined up around here believing it.
Absolutely.
Well, we wanted to get into a little bit, Mo, about the process that you use to get to driverless operation, the decision to pull the safety driver, how you got there. Take us inside as best you can here.
Yeah, that's a great topic. So first, I would start by, like, as I've mentioned, while this one moment has been the highlight and it's been long in the waiting, at no point of time we felt rushed or pressed to meet a certain timeline. Our approach is entirely principled around safety. And that's the number one principle that we have here, and that's what we keep in mind. So to get to a point where we take a safety driver out of the car, that's something that we don't take lightly at all. And it's been, as I've mentioned, years in the making. And it's principled around safety, and in order to do that, you have to have an ecosystem of testing tools with high confidence that you can really rely on, and continuously tie that loop back between our on-road driving and our testing systems. I would highlight that having a simulation, an AV simulation or an AV testing system could be as challenging as the AV problem itself. And we've, over the year, been working on an end-to-end set of tools and infrastructure and ecosystem of testing so that we can enable our engineers to iterate quickly. And that's principled around also creating a psychological safe environment for experimentation where we can push changes and have high confidence on the impact of these changes, as I mentioned again, through our various testing systems, the Swiss cheese approach level of testing that continuously close the loop between our testing systems and our on-road performance. That's mainly how we, like on a high level, strategically how we get there. And of course, there's nothing better than doing all this in one of the most complex driving environments in the world, which is San Francisco.
Well, I mean, maybe one shouldn't maybe try to do it in the worst place first. I mean, I've argued that, Frank Sinatra, if you can do it in New York, you can do it anywhere. Okay, maybe, but, maybe not. Maybe one should, do it easy or, whatever. The objective here isn't I don't know, isn't to solve every problem. It's to solve some problems. I think the way we're sort of putting it here in Jersey is, of course we want to get to 24/7, but we don't want to do 365.25. I mean, one of the guys on our team for New Jersey DOT, he's responsible for shoveling the snow on the roadways. I mean, the guy, you want to kiss his feet, please, whenever it snowed. But if it snows, let's just, cool it for a while, wait, and till it's shoveled, and then go out there. I mean,
that's it. I mean, it's a great point.
That meant, to me, that seems a bit. Who am I? I'm some sort of academic, don't know anything, but whatever.
No, absolutely not. But there is a spectrum, and you have a valid point, right? That there is a spectrum, right? Like we don't want to get into a way. I think what I'm hearing you say into a complete paralysis by analysis because you're shooting for perfection from day one. Right. That's not necessarily what we're doing. Like this is at the end of the day, we're building an AV, right? A playbook that's never been done before.
Right,
and as you all know, it's a fundamentally an AI problem and robotics problem to solve, an ML problem, right? Which is rooted on the data and the quality of the data we're learning from. So accordingly, our strategy has been solidly focused and unwavered. We haven't flip-flopped on it much, which is starting from an intensively hard areas to drive, because otherwise, we are afraid that we can paint ourselves in a corner from an architecture perspective where it would be very hard to change things in the future, right? So building a system that would be extendable and would be scalable, would be easily portable to other cities was one of the main goals for our missions. And that's why we focused on this hard place to start with. Because as you know, it's all about the quality of the data and the quality of our deep network models running on the car relies on that. So, that did actually impact a lot of decisions on our architecture perspective, including even our sensor suite selection and our sensor placements, our failover systems, and a lot more related to the environment we operate with that we could have missed from a purely easy suburban driving plus a simulation system that is powered by one's imagination rather than road exposure.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. You sort of mentioned a little bit with respect to the vehicle. From my view, for whatever I know, it seems that you've been out there, the first one to say, "Hey, we're going to build our own vehicle without a steering wheel." What progress are you making with NHTSA on that one, or whatever, or getting a vehicle or designing a vehicle for this? Can you touch on that a little bit, and as to where you are on the vehicle side?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, it relates to really what we're setting to do here, right? We're not after launching a demo service that would not scale, and fundamental part of this is the viable business model.
Right.
So we're super lucky to have like two big OEMs like GM and Honda in our corner that we can leverage, right?
Yeah, no,
There's hundreds of combined years of car experience. Right. So,
Yeah,
the production of actually our origin, the pre-production of those
yeah.
are already started. GM went through the validation last summer. We're getting about 100 plus of pre-production units this year, and we're working through with NHTSA and in the approval process. But volume production is actually set to start in 2023. So this is very real. It's happening, and it's our way to scale this service through multiple cities here in the US and globally. And the advantage of building an AV from the ground up that is fully designed from the ground up to be a ride share per AV is fantastic. So the value proposition this brings into the customers and to the customer experience is unmatched to anything else in the market right now that you can retrofit with sensors.
I certainly appreciate it. Well, for whatever it means, I certainly appreciate that because, of course, to me, the ride sharing is really important. I mean, if you're thinking about sustainability, it has to be there. If you're thinking about affordability, it has to be there. I mean, and I guess some people say, well, nobody's going to ride with anybody. Well, I don't know. I mean, if you make it attractive, why wouldn't they? I mean, I always use the elevator analogy. I mean, I might prefer to have an elevator by myself, but if Fred wants to get in with me, do I push him out the door? I put up with him, or and so I mean that, and in some sense, it builds a community, and it really, I mean, especially coming out of COVID, we need whatever. I don't know. I just think the sociology of that works. And is something that should be promoted and enchanted. And then the other thing is, I mean, the opportunity that you have to have car builders building this for you that have all the experience and knowledge. I mean, it's non-trivial to put together a vehicle, right? I mean, I think it's non-trivial, and to have that, so. Kudos to you on all of that.
Mo, is the plan to use the Origin vehicles in the robo taxi service that's you're hoping to start this year?
No, this year we are very focused into launching a driverless service here in San Francisco with the permits we have. And we are one CPUC permit away from getting paid rides, like having paid rides here in San Francisco. So that's what we're focused on for 2022. As you know, any vehicle program has to start in parallel, like years ahead of it. So as I mentioned, the volume production starts at 2023. And of course, we're working closely with the government to go through all the necessary and needed approval process. This is something at Cruise we are very, very keen on building the right relation, building the trust relation with both the customers and the regulatory bodies as we do this.
I mean, so the Origin vehicles would be later on at a later date.
Correct.
It always surprised me as to, what's the big hang up, California, that you should charge somebody for a service you provide? I mean, really? You're supposed to do it for free? I mean, where does that, but anyway, we won't go there. I won't drag you into that one. I just don't understand. It seems to me that you provide a valued service, you should be able to charge for it. I mean, nobody, whatever.
Very true. We're also empathetic to like our regulatory partners as we go through this. Again, we're defining something that's completely novel and new here, and we're just taking it one step at a time. Yeah, so we're very confident in that progress.
Yeah, and here in Jersey, we certainly look at what California has done, and I guess at least some of us, in looking at it, we see some very positive things and other things that we say, well, that doesn't seem to make sense, but haven't seen the my goodness, if it's a service and people want to use it and it's safe, I mean, why not try? But anyway, never mind. We won't go there.
Well. We're gonna get back into Jersey in a second, but first, this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website, look for the white paper called The Smart Transportation Revolution. You'll find it under the Insights and News tab. Some great information there to help you make informed decisions. You may know that ETFs can be a good way to spread risk with investments, maybe focus on a particular category of stocks. The website again is motoetf.com. We are back with more of Smart Driving Cars and our guest, Mo ElShenawy, Executive Vice President of Engineering at Cruise. Mo, we've watched and applauded what Waymo has accomplished in Arizona, but have wondered aloud about the business case and societal benefit there. 70% of the households in Chandler, as Alain points out quite often, have access to 2 or more cars. San Francisco, you're feeling what you're doing, that's a better environment there, a more meaningful environment for this kind of service?
We strongly believe that, yes. It's an environment, as we've touched on before, that have this proper intersection we're looking for between what we need from a technology perspective and this rich data set that we're accumulating and learnings we're accumulating every day, but very importantly, the impact that we're after as well. And what puts a meaning behind the mission is where you find a true product market fit for the service you're about to launch in an area where you can feel an immediate value add because of your services to the community. So that intersection is super important to us, and we believe San Francisco is one of the best places in the world to start that.
You've touched on it already, but let's get into a little bit more of what's driving, so to speak, all of this. The societal benefit, the good that this is going to do, because so much money has been poured into this technology by your company and quite a few others here. So what is the good that's going to come out of it? What's your vision?
Yeah, that's a great one. Like we do firmly believe that we will be able to change the face of transportation, and that happens through this much more reliable service that is much more sustainable, all electric, rideshare based service that we can launch in multiple cities that not only would be much safer than the current alternatives, but as I mentioned, it would provide the needed equitable transportations in certain cases, because taking this most expensive factor out of the driving equation allow us to go and serve a much broader segment of this entire sector. So we envision cities that really can embrace this and changes the face of the entire city, not just the transportation. Every current car right now takes like up to 3 parking lots. It's usually barely used even 5% of the time, if that much. And as we've talked about how much income family spends on this, how much time you spend on commute every day. And if you envision the future with driverless cars, where it's more sustainable, more equitable, but more importantly, the safety aspects into the community, the economic prosperity that this can drive back by giving that many people their time back in a much more reliable way of transportation, is something that we're looking forward to, and it keeps us going here every day.
Well, that's exactly the way. That's what's motivating us here, and that's what's gotten everybody lined up. From the residents all the way to the governor and so on. It's amazing, the yearning for this kind of opportunity here, and this is what is putting us all together to try to get you to come to New Jersey, or and do it here. I mean, you go to the community and you talk to people about how you getting places, and my goodness, it is. It makes you cry. I mean, we've developed vignettes, and I mean, are you kidding? And the change, mobility provides opportunity because of the accessibility, and in some sense, it allows those that don't have it to have it. Those of us that have, who knows how many cars available, drop of a hat out of the kitchen, boom, we go, bam, shoot, no problem. I mean, you don't have that. And if one looks at social services for low-income housing, for healthcare, for everything else, how much society has done, and then you look at what society has done for mobility. They give you a bus, a 606 that operates, at best every half hour for 10 hours of the day. That's it. It only goes a couple places. Are you kidding? That's doing something for people. I mean, it drives me nuts. So we've gone sort of crazy here in New Jersey. I mean, we are
We
are just
appreciate that passion a lot, by the way, Alan.
no,
It's like it's just
no,
amazing.
no.
It matches
I mean,
with our
to me,
mission.
it's the value proposition here. You know, the 200 billion or whatever's been involved here. Sure, yeah, I might like to have one. You know, I probably have to. I have too much mobility. Yeah, whatever. I've been blessed. I'm very happy. But boy, there are not more than a few people that this just fundamentally helps them. I mean, and I'm sure you found it in San Francisco where you're operating, and if you're operating at night, my goodness, what's the option? Walking? There is no other option, right? Huh.
Yeah,
Holy, whoa.
So I guess what Alan's pointing out here is, or trying to get, is what might your thoughts be about what it would take to get a company, to get Cruise interested in Trenton and places like we're very much aware, despite what we're saying, that there are many Trentons. That's why it's a great place to.
This is this is fundamentally, again, at the core of our mission, right? Like we can't really have the impact we're going to have without scale, and that means operating in multiple cities here in the US and globally over time. So all I can tell you is we have solid plans to expand beyond San Francisco at the right time with the right vehicles. And that's all really integral part of our mission here. We take this extremely serious. I know we're approaching time here, but I want to touch on just the technological challenge and maybe tying it back to like, okay, why start in San Francisco, or like, why are we staying that long in San Francisco? Perhaps to give you like a quick point of view on the scale we're operating with here, based on the rich data and the rich number of cases and maneuvers we see on a day-by-day basis. Like we choose to operate in areas where on average we have about 46 to 50 times more complex scenarios between DPVs and cyclists cutting in front of us, or pedestrians doing unpredictable acts and deep and unprotected left turns, very complex geometry and intersections and so on. That translates from a technology perspective in us ingesting hundreds of petabytes of data and processing that per month. You know, more data than every movie ever made in 4K. We ingest and process that, go through it every month. We go through, like, our engineers do millions of queries every month to pick very specific scenarios and very specific cases to enrich our machine learning models. Beside, of course, our continuous learning machine, which is like the self-supervised way we're learning through driving. You know, take something like our prediction system, which happens to be like, you know, almost self-learning or self-supervised from perception, because, you know, the future is the next version of the present when you look at it from our cars. But we take all this stuff and we compute. We created our own time machine. I'm super passionate to tell you that we run hundreds of compute years, more than 800 of compute years per day. That's the equivalent of a time machine that we've created here to catch up with human evolution. And we're doing everything possible, as I mentioned, to create a very safe, scalable ecosystem that allow us to take this technology and scale it in multiple cities. And very confident in our approach in what we're doing right now is the best and fastest way to get us there over the long term. So I hope this gives you hope that what we're doing right now will scale to other cities much easier because of the infrastructure that we have, because of the tooling system that we've created, and make it a lot more easier for us to move from city 1 to city number N.
This has got to be tremendously rewarding for you personally too, working on this problem, this issue that has the potential really to change societies globally.
Absolutely, and it's very rare to have such a rewarding and very complex technological challenge where you're pushing AI and robotics state of the art. You're putting the edge on that, and at the same time, it has a very meaningful impacts, to Alain's earlier point, on people that you see every day, and you can start immediately, and you can see that value proposition today from a safety perspective, from an equity perspective, and more.
Well, we want to thank you, Mo, for spending time with us, and hope to see more of you and your colleagues at Cruise. The website for more info is getcruise.com. congratulations and thank you, Mo.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, Mo, and again, congratulations on all the progress you've made over the years, and you know, I'm totally jealous because I guess, you know, I met everybody at the very beginning and whatever, and it's just you know, it's really nice what you've accomplished, and you know,
so much, Alan.
keep going. You know, this is. You're going to change the world, you know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you. Looking forward to chat more.
Well, Alan, that was really terrific, but we want to touch on a couple of other quick headlines to get to from this week. Mobileye filing for an IPO. So here that comes.
Right. I guess they've been hinting at it for some time. I guess this has to do with finance and financial engineering, and even though I'm a professor of operations research and financial engineering, whatever, you know, great.
But it's going to put, I guess, a lot more money behind this whole effort too. Once you spin something like this.
I guess, you know, it seems to me, you know, Intel, you know, had deep pockets, you know, whether it's worth more as a separate entity or more internally to improve Intel, you know, stock value. Hey,
I don't know
that's beyond my pay grade.
I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure they'll still have a.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure they're a player. I mean, they can be a player. Okay, they certainly are a player in what we call self-driving cars, in other words, or what other people let's call level 2. Certainly, you know, they have a substantial customer set of nameplates that use their technology to do you know, intelligent cruise control and so on, automated emergency braking and whatever. So yeah, they're a player there. Whether or not they become a player in the driverless end, you know, to me is we'll wait and see. They may not want to. There may be such a market, you know, to just deal with self-driving or level 2, you know, driverless, to actually provide mobility to people and goods without an attendant, and to do it, as we like to say, safe, equitable, affordable being a sustainable, high quality mobility. And maybe not. Sort of say, but they sort of say.
From TechCrunch, autonomous vehicle startup Pony AI will issue a recall for 3 vehicles. That follows an October crash in California. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is saying that this is the first recall of an automated driving system. And Reuters was the first, I guess, to report on it.
Well, I don't know. I have no idea what that means. You know, recall. I mean, look, what's a recall? Update
Typically,
your software.
it means they pull it off the road until it gets fixed, I suppose.
Well, I guess so. Sure, but of course, if you start crashing, you're of course going to pull the darn thing. I don't know if you call that a recall. I'm fine, call it a recall. What's bothered me, and again, it's probably from my ignorance. With respect to the crash that they had, I just think, you know, again, my opinion is that nobody should test without a driver or attendant in the vehicles. I mean, it's a test. Why would you do that? What, to save a few bucks from having to hire an attendant? You're not out there trying to provide affordable mobility to packages and people. You're trying to figure out, you know, what you didn't know. And you would really risk, you know, you would take off that layer of oversight that an attendant would do to be driverless. What? I mean, so that Reuters says, hey, driverless? Nobody who cares. People that care want to care that you're safe and that the thing works. And if it works and there's a person in there, it works. And the only reason to take the person out of there is, as we just got done discussing, is because the business case, you have to have alms for the poor instead of having a business case. And that's not sustainable. And so, you know, if one is really trying to provide high quality mobility to people or goods, one has to look at the balance sheet, and in the balance sheet, there's a driver cost. But that's when you're trying to deliver the value of the proposition of the mobility, not when you're testing it to find out if it works. Geez, test it with somebody in there in case, oh my goodness. And once you have, oh no, oh my goodnesses, and it just works, and you have no disengagements in your operational design domain, then I think you're good to go. In business, deliver mobility. But when you're testing, you don't have a human oversight. I don't think AI is that good yet. I mean, I don't know, maybe, what am I don't, you know. No, come on. This isn't the Sunday supplement. I mean, who are you trying to prove? Oh, look, man, I was driving. No, but were you safe? Was there disengagement? And please be honest about, well, you have to be honest to yourself. Otherwise, you'll never be in business.
Alan, the Smart Driving Car Summit now planned for early June, and it's going to be focused, as we've been talking about, on what's going on with Trenton Moves and the real progress that's being made here in New Jersey.
Well, I think the real progress is we've been working on for all these years to create a welcoming environment for this. And a welcoming environment so that the technology, someone whose system does work or can be made to work and you know, collect some data in Trenton with attendance so that it does work. Definition of work is it's safe. Or it doesn't have to be perfect, safe enough. One has to define safe enough. Nothing is perfectly safe. Okay, that it's safe enough so that it can provide mobility to people. You know, high quality mobility. My goodness, if you don't have to have a driver, the vehicles are available to you. Hop in, go someplace, hop out. And as I think probably Cruz is seeing in San Francisco in the middle of the night, oh my goodness, people at that time, you know, those that don't have cars really need this because there's no other way to get there. I don't know when Mooney stops operating. Somebody look it up. You know, I don't think it's 24/7. So what happens if you have to, you know, go to your job that starts at 1 o'clock, the 1 to 7 shift or the 1 to 9 shift at a hospital or someplace? How do you get there? Or if the shift ends at 5 o'clock, you know, how do you get home? I mean, you know, I don't think maybe the buses run. I don't know, but I doubt it.
As he pointed out, they have to deal with probably a higher percentage of erratic driving at that hour too. For a variety of reasons.
There is some, and yes, it is challenging. It's not absolutely trivial, of course not. But the value proposition they provide is, I think, enormous to a sector. And if one is really looking to provide equity out there, you know, this is providing mobility to people who you know, otherwise they walk. I guess, you know, maybe the exercise is good, but, you know, come on.
Well, we really want to thank you once again, ElShenawy from Cruise, for joining us. A terrific guest. Thank you also to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more info is available at motoetf.com. Technical support is provided by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety. a 501c3 corporation. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, wherever you turn to for podcasts, really. Ask your smart speaker to play us too. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching. Please stay safe.
And thank you, Fred. And of course, I guess I didn't mention it, but the summit, I mean, it looks like it is going to be spectacular. But more information, right now it's either clickbait or hyping it on my part. And I excuse me, folks, I don't mean to do that, but my goodness, it is really coming together. But more later. If it doesn't, I'll tell you and apologize.
Stay tuned.